Welcome to Renew, the show by the College of Forest Resources at Mississippi State University. We promote and enable the conservation, use, and management of our renewable natural resources. I am your host, Leslie Berger. Today's show will feature the Department of Sustainable Bioproducts. Here to represent that department is faculty member Dr. Dan Seal. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Leslie.
There may be those who are familiar with the College of Forest Resources that remember the Department of Forest Products. Why the name change to Sustainable Bioproducts?
It's really a sign of the times. You know, with the green movement and students today that are more interested in things that are sustainable, things that are green, we've changed our name and changed our curriculum to represent that.
Okay, well, I know that that department has a long history of offering graduate degrees, but now there's a new undergraduate degree program that's available. So would you please tell me about that?
It's still contains large portions of our traditional strengths in lumber and solid wood products, but we're also branching out into things like making boards out of corn stover and the things that are left in the agricultural fields, things that would be sustainable over the long term.
Okay, so what are some of the courses that the students take in that degree program?
They take some of the traditional courses in lumber manufacturing and whatnot, but we also have some courses in composite panel products and things like that that would feature making products out of agricultural waste, for example.
Okay. So what is your role there in the department? What kinds of things interest you and have you founded your career on?
I started out doing economic studies in sawmills and plywood mills. I've kind of graduated into and adapted into mechanical testing, mainly because all our testing equipment is computer controlled. I still teach quantitative methods in a marketing course.
Okay, you say testing. So what are you testing?
We test a little bit of everything. We test lumber, we test plywood, we test oriented strand board, we've tested particle board for a number of companies recently. We don't always test just lumber. I've tested, of all things, recycled milk jugs that go into the truck bodies of a large rental fleet.
Wow.
And we have to certify that the test would meet so that the truck body wouldn't rub against the frame.
Okay, so are most of these strength tests then?
Some are strength tests, some are durability tests. Okay. So the product will last over the long haul.
Right. You've brought some pictures here that kind of demonstrate some of the work that you were doing and some of the others are working with you there in Sustainable Bioproducts. Mm-hmm. Could you explain the project that's being represented in these photos?
Yes.
You can see here there's a large room with a lot of boards in it.
We, Southern Yellow Pine, if you look at the south from Texas, drive across I-20 or I-10, get on I-85 or I-95 up to Virginia, mm-hmm. The wealth of the south is in standing pine timber. When you look at a piece of lumber, the strength of that piece of lumber is directly proportional to the dollars that it's worth. So if it's stronger, it's worth more. And in the process started in 2010, but actually pine lumber was devalued in strength in 2012. And Mississippi State was instrumental in part of that in terms of delaying that devalue. Mm-hmm. Which was worth a lot of money to our landowners. Sure. So because of that, the USDA has funded us to look at ways to increase the value of the southern forest through ways of grading or evaluating mm-hmm. The lumber so that we could bring more value to landowners.
Okay, so part of what you do there then is to test that lumber to show that it still has that value. To show that it still has that value, or to make recommendations in the way that we grade so that it would carry more value. Okay, so one of the other pictures that we have available here is shows this young woman on the end of the board. Is she grading lumber there?
That big stack that you saw just a second ago was collected. I actually drove a truck from Texas to Virginia and collected that. It has to be collected in proportion to the way it's produced by geographic area. We brought it in, had it regraded by certified graders, and then she is actually determining the amount of late wood in that particular board.
The amount of what wood?
Late wood.
And what is that?
When you look at a pine tree and you count the rings to see how old it is, the light part of that is early wood, that dark part of the ring is late wood, and the late wood is the strongest part.
Okay, so more late wood means a stronger board, and she's looking at the end of that to determine that.
That's exactly correct.
Well, that's fascinating. I think we're going to learn a little bit more, speak to one of your graduate students in a little bit when we come back from the break. So I hope that you will join us when we get to meet with a graduate student from the Department of Sustainable Bioproducts.
Discovery. It tells our history and determines our future. At Mississippi State University, we're digging deep, unlocking an understanding of our past, validating it. Middle East exploration by faculty and students is uncovering evidence that unravels ancient mysteries. Scholars have long thought of the biblical kings David and Solomon as mythological figures. Our research offers evidence that supports their existence, boosting MSU into an international league of experts on archaeology. Now we're changing the way people think about the past, opening up new possibilities of understanding for future generations. Digging deeper, learning more. Imagine a world where there's enough food to feed everyone. We are at Mississippi State University, where we ring true.
Welcome back to the Renew. Today we're learning more about the Department of Sustainable Bioproducts at Mississippi State University in the College of Forest Resource. Joining me now is graduate student Fred França. He was just correcting me on the pronunciation of his name because he is from Brazil. So how does a Brazilian student end up in Mississippi?
Yeah, it's a long story. I was a master's student in Brazil, interested in non-destructive testing of lumber. And I had the opportunity to apply to Mississippi State, and the Sustainable Bioproduct, they had the structure and equipment and a project related to non-destructive testing. So I applied and I got accepted into the PhD program.
Excellent, excellent. So what do you hope to do when you finish your degree program here?
I hope to be a non-destructive testing researcher or a professor in a university and teach those vibration skills and its relationship with lumber and wood science in general.
Okay. You know, as a mother of 3 boys, destructive things was always very interesting to them, but that you make it sound like destructive testing is a bad thing. We have some photos that show how wood is being tested in what might be called a destructive fashion. So could you explain, while we show these photos, what we're looking at in them?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so here we have a stack of boards. Are we going to break these, or what are we going to do here?
Yeah, first of all, we're going to non-destructive testing those boards. What I'm saying is we're going to promote a stress or a vibration or a sound wave that will pass through each board, and it gives me a frequency that can explain the stiffness of each board. So first of all, we non-destructive each board, and then we static bending the boards like in a destructive test. So in that picture, we have like a knot, and a knot is one type of lumber defect, or maybe we can say it's the major one. So based on the size and the position of each knot, you can predict the stiffness and the strength of each piece.
Okay.
And it put it into different categories. Like Dr. Seal said, it can be more valuable or less valuable based on defects.
Okay. So is this a static bending test being shown here? We're trying to bend the board and see, I guess, how far it can bend before it breaks?
Yeah, this is the destructive test. This is actual, the real, it reaches the real stiffness and the strength of each board. But you gotta break the board and it won't be useful anymore after you break.
Right.
That's why the non-destructive testing is more efficient, fast, and useful, because you can test more than once. It's repeatable.
Right.
And it's well related to mechanical properties.
Right. Okay, so you brought two boards here with you.
Yes, I did.
And you brought a tool that you use for non-destructive tests.
Exactly.
So this hammer looks destructive. So I'm interested to see what you're going to do here.
Yeah. So here I brought two boards. They're actually different. Both are the famous 2x4s, Southern Yellow Pines 2x4s. And what this tool does is it has a sensor here, and with the hammer, I produce a sound wave. That the wave goes back and forth, and the tool is able to collect the velocity of the wave that I produce. So if I use just the sound, each board produces a different sound that it's related to its mechanical properties.
That makes sense. So if there's a lot of knots in that board, ones that I can't even see, then that sound wave is going to be interrupted when it hits those knots and maybe come back slower to the machine?
Yes, and the tool is able to get this information even from defects that are not visual detectable. So non-destructive testing has advantage over visual grading.
Right. Well, that makes perfect sense. And I can see where you can actually use that board again now. So it's very interesting, and I'm glad to learn more about that. I'd like to thank my guests that have been here today, Fred and Dr. Seal, for helping us to learn more about sustainable bioproducts. And I look forward to seeing great things coming out of you. I hope that you stay here in the U.S. and share your skills with us in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us here at Renew. We hope that you join us again. Hope that you've learned a little bit more about the Department of Sustainable Bioproducts. Until I see you again, I hope that you have the opportunity to get outside and enjoy the bountiful resources that we have here in the state.